Good evening and welcome. You watching India Ahead News, now talking about the biggest case which India is seeing right now. The Shraddha murder saga is yet to be solved. The case has caught attention of one and all. Now the police has expanded its ambit of probe and separate teams are there in Mumbai as well as in Gurugram and Delhi looking for any possible clue from Aftab's past. Now a picture of an alleged abuse has also surfaced which shows bruises on Shraddha's face. Narco test on Aftab 2 is on the cards. The big question still remains, where is the probe headed and how to stop such crimes in future? But before we go further, let's first listen into what Shraddha's friend had to say about Shraddha's relations with Aftab.
वो ना बहुत मार खाई तो फ़ोन की मेरे दोस्त को, फ्रेंड को फ़ोन की, फ्रेंड ने मेरे को फ़ोन किया तो हम लोग मिले, बाहर मिले, उसको लगा तो पुलिस चौकी उसको लेके गया, पुलिस 2020 में पुलिस चौकी लेके गया। लेके जाने के बाद में उसको कंप्लेंट लिखवाया, एफआईआर करवाया इनसे। एफआईआर कराने के बाद में उसको हॉस्पिटल बोला जाने के लिए, तो हॉस्पिटल एक्चुअली नहीं गई, तो हम लोग घर पे लेके आए उसको। तो दूसरे दिन बुलाया, तो दूसरे दिन बोला आई दूसरे दिन, तो एक्चुअली उसको बोले मेरे को डर है, मुझे जान से मार देगा, वैसा बोलने लगी। एक्चुअली मुझे डर है, इतने 3 से 4 बार मुझे मतलब मारा, मुझे गला दबाने की कोशिश किया और मुझे ये डर है, मुझे मार के भी ये मेरे को घर में बंद रखता है, उसका अफेयर भी है।
So this was one of Shraddha's friend who was just talking about what all she was going through. Now to discuss this further, we are today being joined by Sanjay Rana, who's a lawyer and a political analyst. And we're being joined by Virenji Sharma, who's a psychiatrist. We are being joined by Asha Jomis, a social activist, Sanjay Rana, political analyst and lawyer, and also Raj Lakshmi Joshi, who's a political analyst. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. Now, my first question, Virenji, let me send it out to you. In Shraddha's case, her friend has come out, a couple of her friends have come out and they have claimed, one of them has claimed that she was beaten up in 2020 as well, wherein she was being taken to the police station, but Aftab kept on calling incessantly, left voice messages saying that he would commit suicide. He says that it was the 14th or the 15th incident, as Shraddha admitted to her friend. Now, why do you think victims of abuse choose to stay in these situations? Virenji, can you hear me? Okay, I think we'll probably go back to Virenji a little later and going to Asha Jomis probably right now. We could see that Aftab would be seen on his bike with other girls as well, while being super possessive with his own girlfriend, not allowing her to have her set of friends. And also when parents are also said to be a party to it, because more often than not, when she would want to move out, he would ask his parents to coax her, and they were party to it, and they said that once they will get married, it will all get sorted. So can we say that the parents were complicit, and how at what point should a person, a family or friends understand that the situation can be salvaged and one needs to either stop working or rather hoping that anything would improve?
I think in our country it is very normal to be at the receiving end of domestic violence or violence from the partner. If you look at the crimes against women, almost 96% of violence against women are committed by people known to that victim. So we live in a country where it is so normalized. We have been asking the governments to do, training programs on how to train men not to be abusive, how to report crimes, and many things like that. If you remember the Nirbhaya case, it's almost 10 years since the Nirbhaya case. 1,000 crore non-lapsable fund has been allocated for the protection of women. Even less than those, half of those funds are not utilized yet. So from the public institutions, government, police, even judiciary, we see that it is not an ecosystem where women can come forward and file a complaint. And before going to the police itself, we should have a lot of other options for women to come and, file these complaints and get some kind of mediators to work with them, give them safe places if they are being abused. We do not have safe homes for women who go through domestic violence at all. Even even in Kerala, where I'm from, domestic violence victims more often than not is sent back to their own homes where they have suffered the violence in the first place. So we do not have a support system in our society to encourage women to report and to have some kind of safe homes for these women to relocate. And if you look at in this particular case, her own family was not very helpful. She was having a lot of issues with her own family. And as you rightly mentioned at the beginning, the parents of the criminal who abused her was in fact coercing her, because in our culture it is okay to abuse women, it's okay to abuse your wife, it is okay to abuse your sister, it's okay to abuse your girlfriend. And even girls who undergo this abuse, if you look at a lot of pictures, there are a lot of happy pictures, and that again, women are always being pressured to put happy pictures of a relationship even when it is not.
Absolutely. And I think Instagram or Facebook social media has become a living example of that. People might be going through whatever, but everything that appears there is definitely looking happy. We'll quickly go back to Virinchi also here again. I think he's joined us back now. Virinchi, can you hear me?
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
All right. So, Virinchi, again, now we were just talking about when Shraddha's friend came out, he spoke about the 2020 incident when he took her to the police station. Now, here she told him that this was not the first time, this was the 14th and 15th time. And we are talking about 2020, 2 years back. And at that point in time, also, he admits that Aftab kept on calling her incessantly, and he kept on saying that he'll commit suicide if she does not come back. Why do you think victims, in such scenarios, even of abuse, choose to stay in situations like this?
Well, I think one important thing that we need to realize here is the offenders usually target individuals who have a weak personality. So somebody who's more vulnerable. And unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is these offenders create that emotional dependency from their end towards, the victims. And that is one important factor why the victims continue to stay in these relationships. And a lot of times the victims are the ones who already have some traumatic past. It can be, bad parenting, or it can be a single parent, or it can be that loneliness that has been created because of distance from the parents or the family members. So these are the factors which usually push the victims into those emotional dependency states, which make them more vulnerable to continue in these toxic relationships, even after knowing that there is a lot of damage. It can be emotional or physical damage that is happening from the offender's end.
Absolutely, very right. And of course, it cannot be, we cannot just, give a subjective statement. It is very person to person, and the kind of personalities we have. And as you said, the weaker personalities usually, come with probably what is also called as narcissistic personalities or psychotic people. They usually end up coming together, and that is where, such abuses are perpetrated. Going to Namit now. Namit, also friends are now seeking that the case should be fast-tracked, and so of course is her father as well, so that Shraddha can get justice. As we say, justice delayed is justice denied. Let us get a legal viewpoint on how long do these cases usually take.
See, this case particularly, because there is no eyewitness, so there is no direct evidence in this case. So this case is completely based on circumstantial evidence. Now, and also remember, see, the burden is on the prosecution to prove that in the entire universe, one, the crime was committed. Second, that this crime was committed by this person alone in the entire universe. So that to discharge that burden, you require, particularly in cases of circumstantial evidence, a chain of events. There should not be any break in the chain of events. So, when we say justice, delayed is justice denied, you must remember justice hurried is also justice buried. So, investigating agencies, they have to, do their job properly, to build out a case so that, there is a complete chain of events and there is no break in that chain. So that circumstantial evidence is completely proven in the court of law. Otherwise,
Namit,
and we have seen in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and this case, Namit, is definitely way more complicated. Now here, of course, Aftab keeps on changing his statement all the time, and of course statements and even admission is not good enough in the court of law, and even the narco test that has been spoken about, even that does not really stand in the court of law, right?
Correct. See, narco is not the the ends; it's the
Yeah.
means. Because narco will have to be collaborated with whatever other evidence is there on record, whatever other evidence is collected by the police or by the investigating agency. So, see, in cases of circumstantial evidence, we can't rush up things. Although there is delay, there is a considerable delay in because it should have been lodged much earlier. They should have done a lot of things which are not doing. They are not preserving the crime scene also properly. All these things are there. But we have to trust our investigating agencies to an extent that let them do their job. They have taken permission of narco analysis. They'll conduct other investigating. They have seized all digital tools also. So they're doing their things. Let's not rush things up. Rushing things would be counterproductive in my view. Because justice hurried is justice buried. If they do it, and in a court of law, if they're not able to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, this will all be a futile exercise, and by that time, all evidence will be done and destroyed. So they have to collect and picket all the evidence right now properly, so that when they present it, in form of a charge sheet before the competent court of law, they prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. So that's why let them do it. We should not rush things up. Even
very
if we
good
feel
point,
that they
Namit,
should
there.
be speeded up.
Yeah.
There should be other tools of investigating mechanisms which should be implemented. We should trust our investigating teams and let them do their job. Otherwise, this will be futile exercise and they'll flunk in court.
Right. We'll quickly go to Sanjay Rana now. Sanjay, now protests have been there going on about the killing, and protests have been reported from Vasai. BJP is hanging an effigy of Poonawalla from the skywalk at Vasai station and is asking for a death penalty. Shiv Sena Palgar's women wing is demanding that the case be handed over to the CBI. Now, I just want to quickly draw attention to POCSO Act as well. Okay, now first of all, talking about all these protests that are going on, what do you think is the political implication? You being a political analyst as well, do you think it will help all these protests that are going on there?
Obviously, political. Divya, good evening and good evening to my fellow panelists. To be honest, if you're asking me, political party will do the protest and all that because they have to showcase and make it, it's agenda for them. And if you're asking about the BJP, obviously, I understand why BJP is doing. They are trying to give a love jihad angle, but it's very important. One of my panelists were saying that why it's happening, why people are shattered. If everyone, if you look at our country and our society, everyone is shattered. We are because there is a reason behind it. We are not communicating each other. We're not communicating to our parents. Our parents are not communicating to their kids. That's a major issue, and the communication gaps create such kind of problem in the society. And fall in love. You can fall in love with anyone. It's not matter. But why the girl was facing such kind of cruel, behavior of the gentleman who has been with her from last couple of years, as per the study shows. But there must be a reason behind it. Nowadays, if you look at all the friends are coming and they're making a statement, but where they were, because when we do the friendship, it's our social responsibility as well to support our people, support our society, support our friends. But people are not supporting, and when incidents happen, we are passing a buck on others, which is not acceptable.
Sanjay, tell me this. Now, this demand about handing over the case to the CBI, do you think will that help? Or as Namit was pointing out, let the investigative agency, let the police also do their work. So should we rush into moving it on to the CBI, or just let it take its own due course of time right now?
I think I agree with Namit, because we have to give time to investigation agencies to find out all the evidences. Because if you look at, it's almost a 6-month-old story, and everything is haywire. It's collecting incidents, collecting the evidence, and putting everything in a systematic way, which can be proved in the court is important. If we are passing to CBI, what they will do? Obviously, as agency, both agencies are agency, and we have to respect each of the agency, and we should not pinpoint who is best, who is bad. Everyone is good, and we should at least allow team to work. And if you want to a CBI investigation, CBI should help the investigation agency, those who are doing investigation at this point of view. Collectively, effort will make the sense. But if you're asking me as there's a two-way. Obviously, I'm talking as a political, as a journal, as a society person. If I look at as a lawyer, obviously, it's going to be very, very difficult to prove in the court of law, because evidences is very, very important. Court always work on the basis of evidence which is there front of them. They will not take any action on emotions. So this is very important for agencies to use all the tools, whether it's a digital tool or narcotics tool, whatever the tools they have to find out. The facts is important to find out and demonstrate and make a charge sheet and put front of the court, so at least court can take action and give punishment. Otherwise, we just raising a flag and doing a andolan will not help anyone. We need to educate. We need to do two things here. We need to educate our society how we need to behave, why we are shattered. We need to have a communicate. We need to avoid communication gap. We need to create a social awareness program. Number one. Number two, the agencies. The agency has to act properly. And lot, if suppose if you government want CBI to take care of that, CBI should come into the picture, and both agencies should work together to find out more and more evidence. Otherwise, this case will be only part of the debate, and after a few years, you'll find that court, Supreme Court, High Court, all the court is going to release this gentleman, because if the evidence is not there, court can't do anything, because court are stuck and they cannot take any judgment, they cannot take anything without the proof.
Very right. I'll quickly want to go back to Namit now. Namit, also now I want to talk about POCSO also a little bit here. That is protection of children from sexual offences, though this is not a case of POCSO in particular. But what I want to draw attention to is that a study found that on an average, more than 509 days are taken for a case to be deposed, whereas the POCSO Act stipulates that the cases should be disposed of within a year. Now, of course, one of the primary reasons for this high dependency is the slow pace of the investigation by the police and the delay of depositing the samples also by the forensic science laboratories. Now, tell us something, when everything is delayed, how do we tackle this problem? And again, as far as POCSO goes, mostly it is children who are and majority perpetrators. There also, majority of them, more than 90%, are known people, which in this case is also the case. They were in a relationship, they were living together. So it is usually we see that it is known people who are doing such stuff.
See, the provision of 1 year which you're talking about, that is not a mandatory provision. That is a declaratory provision which says that as far as may be possible, you should conduct a trial within 1 year. That is what has been held in a multiple, in a cutting of judgments also is one. Second, see, delays attributable not only to the investigating agency, but also to the prosecution, also to the accused, also to the ecosystem which we have created, which suffers from this tariq pe tariq defect. Yeah. See, of course, investigation, takes time. Particularly when a child is involved to dig out truth or to dig out what has actually happened from a traumatized child, it takes time, because you have to produce that child before the court. The court has to, in camera proceedings, examine that child, because in, a lot of cases, there are fake cases also. And only, a child will open up to a judge who has to, follow a certain procedure also. That also takes time, to let the child come into a state where he can, where he or she can actually depose the truth before the court is won. Second, collection of evidence in POCSO cases also a very tricky proposition of law. Although, unlike, when we're talking about a murder case like Shraddha's murder case, in POCSO, there is a presumption against the accused, and the burden is on the accused to, to disprove charges against him or the allegations against him. See, then, there's this entire trial which has to follow as per CRPC. The accused has to be summoned. The accused had, the trial court has to, make sure that secure the presence of the accused during the entire trial. Evidences are to be led. Prosecution has to open the case. Prosecution witnesses are to be examined. There may be cross-examination, there may be defense witnesses also, it depends. So, although there are separate POCSO cases, which, the law also says you have to fast track it as far as may be possible, you schedule the hearing day to day as per 309 CRPC, all this is there. But when it comes to, practical aspect of conducting a trial, it takes time. As I'm repeatedly saying, justice hurried is justice buried. See, as an accused also, because I'm a defense lawyer, I can say that accused also has a right to fair investigation and a fair trial. And, that is why collection of evidence, even if it takes time, reasonable time, I'm not saying that it takes 6 years to file a charge sheet. Right. It can take reasonable time. And I'll also tell you what the law says. Law says under section 167 clause to CRPC, it says that if an accused, if a charge sheet is not filed within 90 days, if there is a punishment of life in prison, of punishment of more than 10 years, then accused is to be released on bail. So investigating agencies, so as to secure the presence of the accused during trial, they file the charge sheet within that period of 90 days. And right. I think 3 months, 90 days is a reasonable time where, investigation can take place. Coming back to your and that is a very pertinent question you have asked me. That is of FSLs. In my experience, I've seen that FSL reports take as long as 3-4 years to come, because there are very few laboratories which actually, who are actually doing work, and they're also very short-staffed. So that is, again, I'm repeating myself, that it's risk of being criticized for repetition. The ecosystem which we have created, which suffers from tariq pe tariq defect at all stages, is responsible. Yeah. So when we talk about this requires a larger debate as to how do we, how are we treating our children, and if our children are being abused, what are we doing about it? So this requires a larger debate, in my view. But
absolutely.
Again, see, it takes time.
It does take time. Now we'll go to Raj Lakshmi now. Raj Lakshmi, you're also a political analyst, and of course we know that in states like Assam, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal and Himachal Pradesh, majority cases are disposed of and after being pending for many years. Of course, Namit has clarified that it takes time, but what about these cases which are not really brought to any result, no judgment, so to say? Hello, Raj Lakshmi, just unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah. Good afternoon, Divya. And I was listening to what Mr. Namit was saying. Yeah, he was saying that justice hurried is justice buried.
Yeah.
At the same time, we would also say that justice delayed is justice denied also. Because, a lot of things, in fact, they get buried if it is denied, if it is delayed. Because like in this case, if you see, those investigations or those kind of the witnesses, in some cases, the witnesses may no longer be alive also. Situations change and people obviously will not remember a lot of details. So the longer the case drags, it will be difficult for a person to get justice because, a lot of things happen. A lot of water has flowed under, the bridge. So it becomes more and more difficult for somebody to nail the accused. And that is what happens, I think, in a lot of cases. And that is what a lot of the accused hope and pray for also. And they try to find out some loopholes in the cases so that they can keep dragging the case. So there are a lot of things that, the advocates can do so that the case, they keep getting this tariq pe tariq. And that
right.
Unfortunately,
Raj Lakshmi,
let me
quickly add some numbers here. Just let me quickly.
You have a waterside case.
Yeah.
It becomes very difficult for the victim to find any kind of justice. Now, in the case of Shraddha, I'm just wondering who and how they're going to be actually corroborating all the evidences, because all these friends, they're coming out with all kinds of claims now. But then, where were they when they actually should have taken some action? And now, most of the evidence must have been destroyed by. And another thing is that everybody is referring to, a lot of people are referring to him as that gentleman. He is by no stretch of imagination a gentleman. He is that monster. He must have destroyed a lot of the evidence.
Absolutely.
The digital evidence.
Raj Lakshmi, let me quickly bring in some. Bring in some data right now. Now, incidentally, according to data published by National Crime Record Bureau in 2021, the accused was a person known to the victim. As I said earlier, also 96% in 96% of the cases which are found under POCSO. And Andhra Pradesh shows a huge disparity between acquittal and conviction figures, which is around 56.15% of the total disposed cases. And similar is the case in West Bengal also. So why these few states have these huge acquittal rates? Could it be to do with, the system which is there? Now in Hyderabad also recently we have seen so many rape cases have come to light, and majority of the case, in a lot of cases, the people who were the perpetrators were also connected to the political parties here. So Raj Lakshmi, would you want to talk on that or?
Yeah. So, in a lot of cases, then what happens is the victims, they then want to bypass the state courts, because then they are not getting justice there. And then that is when a lot of them, they try to approach the Supreme Court. And in some cases, then the Supreme Court sends it back to the High Court, because then, if it is not relevant, or if the investigation has to be done by the state, in that case, then again it comes back to the state court. But then I think that if the cases are dragging on in the state, and if you find that there is no a real outcome or no consequence, then I think then people should approach the Supreme Court, the higher courts, and I think because, like I said, the longer the case drags, it becomes more and more difficult for somebody to get the expected outcome.
Absolutely.
All the evidences will be lost, and it becomes difficult for the witness also to keep, getting back to those dates. And just imagine 10 years later, you are speaking about one particular incident on a particular date, and especially when it comes to rapes and when it comes to murders, how do you actually rely on a witness that is speaking about something that happened 10 years or 15 years ago? That is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So I think,
we'll go back. We'll get some. We'll get views from Virinchi again now on this. Virinchi, Shraddha is also, it's reported that Shraddha also called a doctor saying that she was depressed, according to one of her friends, during the COVID times. Now, before that, she used to do a lot of solo travel, as we've heard. And after coming into a relationship with Aftab, her lifestyle changed drastically and she became more of a homebody. So, what kind of a mental impact do you think that she had? And in such cases, how do victims react?
Well, according to the report, like you said, if she did consult a doctor and she did report some depressive symptoms, that very clearly means that, there was immense stress that she was undergoing. And, probably that stress could be coming from the partner's end.
Yeah.
And somewhere, what we need to understand is when an individual is undergoing a psychological health condition like a depression or an anxiety, a lot of times probably the logical thinking is weakened. It's only the emotions and the impulsivity that is more, but the logical thinking or the problem solving abilities are low. That also could be one reason why she probably couldn't come out of a situation like this, though she knew it was toxic to her. So undoubtedly, this angle is something that we should consider, because sometime back we were discussing about why there was, this continuity of her in this particular relationship. But again, we need to understand while we're talking about, the one who's accused, because sometime back we were talking about how the court trials are being delayed. But as a society, there's a very important role, because if a person A is committing an offense at the age of 25, we had 24 years to change that person's personality. Unfortunately, we do not work on these aspects. I still remember, last time when an incident like this happened in Hyderabad.
Because Virinchi, coming to people like you, coming to psychiatrists and showing to them is still a huge taboo in our country. The first reaction is, oh, ye to pagal hoga, or oh, there's some problem here. It is not as acceptable as it is probably in our in the Western country.
Unfortunately, yes. And one of the major reasons for this can be the medical fraternity itself. Because maybe a little offbeat, but if you look into the course of MBBS, in the 5.5 years, an individual reads 14 days of psychiatry. So when an individual is exposed to that minimal amount of mental health or psychiatry, the understanding of psychiatry, understanding of psychological conditions are not really accepted. And a lot of times when a man or a boy is behaving in a particular way, they feel that it is just the hormones in them that is making them behave. So if a boy is aggressive, oh, that's because he's a boy and he has testosterone, so he's supposed to be aggressive. He can be violent. And unfortunately, like I was telling, when an incident like this previously happened in Hyderabad, there was a lot of discussion happening about how women should not walk out after 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Right. I remember telling, if men are the ones who are causing the trouble, stop men from going out after 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. So
right, Virinchi, I would also love to stand here for the men, because as far as abuse in domestic spaces goes, it is not just women. Of course, majority is women, because India is a patriarchal society, but I'm sure there are a lot of men also who would be made fun of if it is a taboo for women to reach out. It will be a taboo for men also. And when we talk about personalities, there will be women also who are, doing the same to men. So I'm sure that is a discussion for another day. We'll go to Asha now. Asha, are there any signs that you see that people around victims should be paying attention to? and what is the right time probably to report, because you keep on seeing this behavior. Now here also in this case we saw that her friends did get to know. One of her friends had also taken her to a police station 2 years back. The parents also, probably the tiff with the parents also was also because probably they did not approve of the boy. How do the parents or the friends or people in your circle know at what point in time to go and get professional help if you are not being able to do that yourself?
I think we should have massive social awareness campaigns on what would make constitute abuse in terms of, it could be emotional abuse, it could be physical abuse. In this case, you have clearly mentioned that how her boyfriend was very possessive and would not let her speak with other boys or go out on single solo trips and things like that. These are clear indicators of being in a toxic relationship. So in schools and colleges, we should make it very, very clear to the students that what is a toxic relationship and how people should not stay in toxic relationships. And when you come to the public institutions, in this particular case, there was also a police case which was filed previously. And so the police did had an opportunity to stop this crime, but it did not. We see this trend always in police stations when you go to report domestic violence. If it is a married couple, they would always
so Asha, let me just tell you there, probably we are not very sure whether in 2020 the case was filed. They had definitely gone there, but whether the case was filed or not, that is still, we're not sure about that. Do continue.
Happens when you go to the police station, because I work with a lot of women who go through abuse. When we go to the police station, police refuses to file a complaint. If you look at the latest case in Kerala, Vijay Babu's case, in fact, his wife itself had filed a case against him. And now there was a huge public outcry when he came out on a live public Facebook video naming the victim. And he was a criminal with a background of domestic violence, and yet he was given bail. The case is still in the court. The case is not moving anywhere. So from the police to the courts, they are not gender sensitive now. So thankfully, we have a new justice, Chief Justice in Supreme Court, who is very proactive in ensuring gender sensitivity issues. And we would see, I'm really hoping to see that this kind of gender sensitization happens in lower courts to the higher courts. And when a woman comes to the police station to file a complaint, please register the complaint and take action so that, not only her, maybe there could be other potential victims. The same, if it's an abuser, he's not going to just abuse one person. He's going to go around and abuse a lot of people. You could put an end to that. The police should not act as mediators. It is not the job of the police. It is the job of a psychiatrist or mediators to do that. But when a woman comes to the police station, do not send her back without filing a complaint. So from the police, courts and in our universities and schools, we should let our students make sure that they're not
very right, Asha. As you've said, the police should do the job that is meant for them, because the fact that the woman has reached them, she has, I'm sure, fought with herself for the longest time, fought with her friends who are trying to convince her, probably fought with her family also in case when people are married and still they're going through domestic violence and kids are involved, and then finally reaching the police is definitely the last straw. And if then nothing is done, probably after 1-2 years, exactly what has happened to Shraddha, something like that would happen. Going back to Namit, lastly and most importantly, how do you think we can sensitize children in schools? I think that is a very, very important thing, as Asha also pointed out. Probably make it a part of the curriculum. Even now we do have a lot of psychiatrists in schools, but it's not a part of the curriculum. They are there in few schools, and even political parties, when they reach out to each and every house before elections, shouldn't they be talking about it on a grassroots level as well? Because most of the cases that never, see the light of the day and probably are never reported formally can be coming from these villages.
That's true. A lot of these cases which go unreported may come from remote areas or rural areas. But see, expecting political parties as part of the election manifestos or election agendas going door to door and telling people about one particular law is, I think, not the correct way of doing it. I think it has to be done on a larger scale. I think social media is to be put to use. Because nowadays growing children, they tend to use more social media than this door-to-door campaign. Because at times guardians may also not encourage political parties coming to their door and explaining what is POCSO, etc. Because see, political parties, the people they send may not be trained enough to do it. You need trained personnel to do it. So I think social media should be put to use. And at district level and at tehsil level or at taluka levels, they have to do something. In form of they have to. I think, in my view, they will have to involve judiciary to a certain extent. Where the judges or magistrates can be empowered, or teachers can be empowered. Government teachers can be empowered to they can be trained and they can be trained to impart further training too. So I think these two, again, on field we can put to use judicial staff, our judiciary, and teachers, government teachers, private teachers, etc.
Right.
And virtually we can put to use social media to to spread awareness about what actually POCSO is. How do you put criminal machinery into picture?
But Namit, it is always a question mark. Children will not be probably sitting and watching shows like this, like a discussion which is happening right now will really not reach the kids. So it has to be, the route has to be either via schools or people who are actually going to the grassroots. Time allows us just for this much today. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on India Ahead. Thanks a lot. And that's all for this bulletin. I hope something comes out soon out of this case and justice is delivered.